All right. All right, so we are back from closed session. So we're 4.0, 4.1, 4.0 reconvene to open session. Nothing to report out. 4.1, let me see here. 5.0, student board comments. 5.1, student board members can report on their school site's upcoming activities and events. They may also share or comment concern or observations with other board members. So we'll start with our board member. I'm sorry. Huh? I didn't catch. Duhart? Oh, Duhart, sorry. Ms. Duhart, if you can.
Hi, thank you. I would like to share on Indian Springs' new newsletter that we're going to be doing every end of the quarter. So ASB has started a new thing where we just report on all our games and different activities going on within the school. We do a recap of what has happened and what's going to happen. So it'll go to every one of our students and every faculty and staff member. So I feel like I should report on it only because it brings like a unity to our community. Everybody knows what's going to happen. They're well informed. And it just gives them an opportunity to know what's going on so they can attend these events. All right. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We have Mr. Morales.
Good evening. I would just like to bring some activities that's going on at my school to the attention of the board. So first off, we have the Air Force Junior ROTC Food Drive this year. I have the proud honor of being the director of it. We have a 1,000 non-perishable food item goal. We have about 100 items collected so far. We had the kickoff at the Miss Cardinal City pageant on the 21st. Also, our school is trying to raise money to build the Johnny Cardinal statue project. The Cardinals are our mascot, so that's really something we've been trying to do. I think we have $200-300 raised so far out of 5,000. So
fantastic.
Yeah. Also, Gear Up from San Bernardino is looking into driver's ed for class of 2020, and a lot of the students are really excited about that and see it as a privilege and a status symbol. So I think it'd be a really cool opportunity potentially for students that are not in class of 2020. Maybe we could bring back driver's ed courses for the schools.
Fantastic. That's great addition. Mr. Morales, what are the dates that the food drive concludes for OTC, and where do people bring canned or non-perishable items?
We can there's a big box in the front office for San Bernardino High School, and it'll be open there all the way till November 20th.
November 29th?
20th.
20th. Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, thank you. And then I do want to mention, since this is a new way of doing the agenda, Karen, when you go into where it says meeting, or not meeting, is it featured? Can we add the student board member's name onto that site? If there's a way we can do that, please. Thank you. Okay. Let's go to 6.1. This is the time during the agenda when the Board of Education is prepared to receive comments from members of the public on any matter within its subject matter jurisdiction. If you wish to address the board, please complete a request to address the Board of Education it's located in the multipurpose room back there and Indian Springs High School prior to start of the board meeting. So let's go ahead. Are there any comment?
Yes, Madam President, we do have one member of the public that would like to speak tonight. The board welcomes Mr. Trayvon Martin from CSBA. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Good to see you. Good evening.
And for those that are coming up, when recognized, if you can step to the podium, you're given 5 minutes or less. And for those groups of 6 or more, they're given 30 minutes. Go ahead.
Great. I'm just waiting okay, here we go, my presentation. Good evening, President Rosales Medina, Vice President Rogers, Cabinet, Superintendent Marsden, and Board.
Good evening.
My name is Trayvon Martin. I'm the Public Affairs and Community Engagement Representative for the California School Boards Association. So as you guys are aware, I did send out an email, I believe it was last week, regarding a legislative debriefing on October 21st. We are going to postpone that legislative debriefing. And in place of that legislative debriefing now, I'm going to be doing a roadshow to all the school districts and giving a legislative update. So I'm going to do that tonight. And here we go. So we're going to first talk about the infamous SB 328. This is Portantino's late start bill. As you know, CSBA does oppose SB 328. We don't oppose the science or the late start. We do oppose the mandate that all middle schools and high schools are required to start their schools no earlier than 8 for middle schools and 8:30 for high schools. So we are going to work with leadership should the governor sign this bill into law to get appropriations next year. Next up is AB 48. This is O'Donnell's facilities bond. CSBA does support this bond. This bill would place a $15 billion facilities bond on the March 3rd, 2020 ballot. $9 billion of that $15 billion would go to K-12 education with some carve-outs, as you can see on the presentation. It increases the state's grant amount sliding scale based on the district's ability to generate local funds and the percentage of low-income, foster youth, and English learner students. There are various changes that took place from the original bill, as you know, and all of these are based on, all this is based on the voters actually approving the bond in the 2020 ballot. We're going to move on to AB 751. This is O'Donnell's Pathway to College Act. CSBA, we co-sponsored this bill. It would allow districts to allow students to take the SAT or ACT instead of the 12th grade summative assessment, just allowing access to, for students not to have to come on Saturdays and things of that nature, and utilizing the time that they're on campus to take their SAT and ACTs. We're going to move on to charter school bills. AB 1505 is petition and renewals. CSBA is supportive of the bill. As you know, CSBA did not support the bill until it got amended. So we are supportive of the bill. It allows for consideration of impact. So if districts have a program that a charter school is proposing, or there's another charter school that has that same program and they have capacity to accept new kids, this will allow districts to deny their charter school petition based off of that. It also allows for special consideration for districts who are in financial distress. It brings back the county board's ability to hear appeals and author countywide charter schools. There is limited approval by the State Board of Education. So if you remember, that's the whole reason the bill came out. The State Board of Education was overturning county school board decisions and local school board decisions. So that's mitigated. There is a renewal data update. So county schools or charter school petitioners would have to provide new type of data that will be collected and tracked by the CDE. And it also puts a virtual moratorium on schools that are home-based and independent studies.
Dr. Flores?
Thank you, Trayvon.
You're welcome.
I forgot the name of the bill, but it was the ACT and SAT.
Yeah, that is AB 751.
Or 751. But I understood it to mean that they would take the SAT or ACT instead of the SBAC, instead of the
summative assessment, correct.
right.
Yeah.
And would it be mandatory?
It's not mandatory. What the bill does, it allows LEAs, it allows districts, it gives them the ability to opt out of taking the 11th grade summative assessment. It's not a requirement that districts administer CAT and SATs instead of the 11th grade summative assessment.
So the districts would administer the ACT or the SAT?
They could, yes. The bill would give them, it would allow them to do so.
Really?
Yeah.
And it hasn't been signed in?
It's currently on the governor's desk. We hope he signs it before his October 13th deadline. As you remember, last year this bill did pass the legislature, and Governor Brown did veto it.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of opposition to it.
There's a lot of opposition to it, and we've heard several times from the CDE that they're going to revamp how the 11th grade summative assessment is used and make it more relevant. So that was Governor Brown's reason for vetoing last year.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. AB 1507, this is Smith's bill. This is also another charter school bill. This limits charter schools from being able to operate outside of their approval petitioner's area. So a charter school couldn't get approved by San Bernardino and operate or open up a charter school facility in Redlands. So it closes that loophole. CSBA does support this bill. There's another charter school bill, AB 967. This just requires charter schools to be more transparent and also make available and go through the whole LCAP process that every other public K-12 education school has to go through. So we do support that bill. Moving on, this is SB 223. SB 223 is the medical cannabis bill. This bill allows for parents to come on campus and administer medical cannabis to their students. So some of the reasons for this bill is previously they would have to come and actually take the child from school, administer the medical cannabis, and then take the child back to school. So we know when kids are not on campus, they're not learning, so this actually just mitigates that. It doesn't require LEAs or districts to allow it, it just gives them the ability to allow it. AB 773, this is Gonzalez's voter education bill. This bill just allows districts and encourages districts to use the CDE's approved curriculum to host a assembly for 12th graders.
And I just want to clarify, I noticed that it says non-smoking and vaping for SB 223. And,
Correct.
And when you look at, just so people can recognize, medications sometimes are when it's prescribed medication other than cannabis, are actually very strong as well. So you would see that in the streets. So just to kind of put that out there, that this, it does say non-smoking.
Non-smoking or non-vaping, yeah. So it could be CBD oil or
Okay.
a pill or something like that, yes.
Okay.
Bills that did not pass, AB 39. This is the full and fair funding bill. This bill actually does not appropriate any funds. It just says, as a state legislator, we aspire to increase the LCFF by 2020 and 2025 to the national average in the top 10. As you know, CSBA has a campaign to put an initiative on the March ballot or the November ballot of 2020 to raise the per pupil funding to the top 10 in the nation by 2025 and the average in the nation by 2020. And then lastly, AB 331, this is Medina's Ethnic Studies bill. As you know, the bill did not get signed by the governor last year when it made it to his desk. This bill is going to be brought back for a second year on concurrence. The CDE and the State Board of Education is working on an approved curriculum, so it would be premature for the governor to sign this bill. So this bill is going to come back as a second year bill. And that's all the updates I have for you all today, board. Should you have any questions, I will email this presentation to you, and you can always contact me.
Trayvon, thank you for the update. I thought I saw something in reference to K-8 and willful defiance. Do you have anything on that update?
So the K-8 willful defiance bill did pass the assembly, and it is on the governor's desk. We don't have an official position on that bill. We are watching the bill. We do know it's going to be a significant impact to districts. And some districts like yourself are already ahead of the game with the paradigm shift in the PBIS and restorative justice. But there are districts who do struggle with this heavily. So we will watch it. Again, the governor has till October 13th to sign or veto any bills. And as soon as that happens, we will let you all know. You should receive your packet in the mail by the week of October 14th of all the bills that the governor did sign into law, but I will send you guys an email when it comes out.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you. Are there any other? That's it? Let's go ahead and go to you know when you just get the, it's because we're having technical difficulties with the okay, so let's move on.
Thank you, Madam President. So currently we're on item 7.1, key performance indicator. And board, as you know, we try to give you updates on those limited key performance indicators that we monitor. This tonight, you're going to get a first blush at our California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, our CASP results. And so with that, Dr. Mitchell's prepared a presentation with his team. So Dr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Dr. Marsden. Good evening, board. Tonight, thanks, guys. You want me to let you finish laughing? We're well familiar.
Ready to go.
Tonight, we are going to present 2019 CASP scores. I want to make a quick note, board, that these are preliminary scores. The official scores do not come out until December when the statewide dashboard is released. And so tonight, you'll see projections from our preliminary data. You'll also see comparative analysis, all from projections as well. So we'll get right into it. I'll be co-presenting with Barbara Richardson, our Director of Accountability and Educational Technology. Later, you'll hear from Dr. Raimundo, Principal at Pacific High School, on some phenomenal results that she's achieved with her team this past year as well. So we'll jump right in. Our objectives for tonight are fourfold. One is to just to make sure we're going to review your understanding of the California School Accountability System. We're going to share 2019 status and change, otherwise known as results, for our projected outcomes for elementary and middle school CAFs, English language arts, literacy, and mathematics by student groups. We'll share, we're going to actually skip number 3, and then number 4, we will go over some strategies to improve our current levels of performance. And so we'll jump right in. The slide that you're looking at now is just an overall review of year-over-year growth. You'll see at the top slide, in 2018, we had mathematics status of negative 64. We grew, our status grew, our change grew from 2.2 scale score points to negative 61.8. If you look at the bottom for English language arts, we started at negative 26, and we 2019 we're at negative 25.6, reflecting a 0.4 status change up for ELA. And you'll see that our goal is to meet standard at 0. So we're inching along. We do have growth in math and English, mind you. English is marginal. The next few slides, board, are narrative illustrations or findings from our data analysis. So we'll just review these. After these slides, you'll also see them graphically as well. So just to give you a broad overview, 2019 administration of CAFs, our status was, we maintain our status in English language arts, representing a 0.4 scale score point change. We anticipate that our accountability color will change to orange, noting a low status and maintained status. In English language arts, 42% of our schools increased their status, and of those 29, 2 schools significantly increased their status, with Norton Elementary by gaining 15.4 scale score points, and Pacific High School, which you'll hear from later, gaining 19.1 scale score points. In math, similarly, here's an overview of our broad achievement. So in the 19 administration of CAFs, our status was maintained in mathematics. We grew 2.2 scale score points. And so we anticipate that our color will be orange, representing a low status or maintained change. In mathematics, 46%, or 32 out of 69 of our schools, increased their status. Of those 32 schools, 11 schools showed significant increases in math, including North Park, Bonniol, Ingram, Mount Vernon, Kendall, Monterey, Rio Vista, or Arrowview Middle, Richardson Prep, Pa'akuma, and Middle College High School as well. And those principals are represented here. We'd like to give them a warm commendation for their work. Thank you, staff. Sure, the board's asking you to stand, principals. In fact, all of our principals that are here, please stand and let the board recognize you. We know it's no short order to see these kinds of movements in our achievement. We're so proud of our teams and the leadership of our teams, and so you're seeing their hard work reflected in the achievement of our students. The next slide goes over student group analysis in the English language arts. Our African American student group maintained their status, growing 2.2 scale score points. We anticipate that their color will be yellow. Our foster youth student group grew by 5.1 scale score points. Our English learner group, as defined by the state, which is EL plus RFEP 1 through 4s, maintained with a no gain, no drop, with a flat performance. Dr. Flores, you'll see later that we disaggregate by RFEP, EL only, and so on and so forth. But just for the state's purposes, that recognizes the English learner group as EL plus RFEP, we have a flat achievement status. And then our students with disabilities group declined slightly, but with a 4.4 scale score point decrease. And we anticipate that their accountability color will be red. Moving on to mathematics. Student groups in mathematics. Our African American student group increased their status with 3.7 scale score point change in 2019. We anticipate that their accountability color will be yellow. Our foster youth, again, increased 5.4 scale. Our English learners, again, that's EL plus RFEP, maintain their status with a growth of 1.0 scale score points. And our students with disabilities went up by 1.1 scale score points. Okay. Next, yes, okay, yeah. Let's get some other staff to do that. What's coming around to you, board, if you remember, we're going to be taking a look at the 5x5s, and I'll wait for you to get those. This is a really quick and easy look at our school performance related to status and change, and I'll wait for you to get that to go through that in more detail. Thanks, Barbara. So, board, if you can just take a look real quick. If you look down the left-hand side, that's the status. That means like where our schools landed according to the 2019 test data. And across the top is the change. So that'll tell you if they went up or down year over year compared from 18 to 19. Does that make sense? So if a school was in a green, the top, very left top green where it says decline significantly, that would mean that a school's status is very high, but they went down from 18 to 19 significantly. Does that make sense? If a school was all the way at the bottom right in orange, that means that their status is still very low, but they significantly increased from 18 to 19. And so you see we've placed each of our schools there according to English and math. Barbara, you want to say anything more about it, please?
Yeah, it's just in comparison to last year. If we look at the English language arts literacy 5x5 color table first, we've got 6 schools in blue and green. You can see they're kind of at the top and at the right. The majority of our schools still fall within low status. And in 2018 in English language arts, we were heavy on the right-hand side of the chart. Many of our schools were on that right-hand side, showing that they were growing. This year in English language arts, we are heavier on the left-hand side of that chart, showing that we had more schools that declined or significantly declined last year. 21 of the schools that are in the declined or significantly declined, 21 of those schools were new declines this year. We had 3 schools in red last year in English language arts down at the bottom left-hand side of that chart, and all 3 moved out of that position this year. Pacific went from red to yellow. Lincoln and Monterey moved into orange. And again, all 3 of those schools moved out of that very lowest, very low and declined position. If you flip over to the math grid, you'll see that we have 6 schools in mathematics that are up in the blue and green as well. The majority of our schools are in the low status. In 2018, we were heavy on the right-hand side, and in 2019 in mathematics, we're heavy on the right side as well. which means that many of our schools are increased or increasing significantly. One of the things to also note is that in 2019 or 18, we had 4 schools in red in mathematics, and this year we had 7 schools that dropped into that declined significantly in mathematics. And so both of those will give you a snapshot across the district of each and every school in terms of where they fall in the accountability grid. And
Thank you, Barbara. So we're on the next slide, slide 9.
this is just another way to look at our growth in English language arts and math in 2018-19. On the top, mathematics showing that 2.2 scale score point change, and on the bottom in English language arts, the 0.4 scale score point change, and you can see there the accountability colors for both English language arts and mathematics for this year, we believe will be orange. We do not have comparative scores yet for other districts or for the state of California, but benchmarking back to 2017-18 comparisons, because those we haven't shared with the board yet. We're providing this again because the data for 2018-19 for other districts is not available to us yet. In 2017-18 in mathematics, we outperformed districts Rialto, Moreno Valley, Fontana, and in California, Riverside and Redlands outperformed us. For English language arts in 2017-18, we outperformed local districts Rialto, Moreno Valley, Riverside, and Fontana, and California and Redlands outperformed SBC USD. So just a snapshot of those comparisons. The next 7 slides illustrate student group and programmatic, both racial and programmatic data from 2016-17 to 2018-19 in both ELA and mathematics. For our race and ethnicity for English language arts and literacy, district-wide, African American, Asian, and Hispanic student groups all maintained. And our American Indian, Filipino, Pacific Islander, white, and 2 or more races student groups increased. As we look at our English learner groups and our other as we look at our programmatic student groups, our district-wide homeless and socioeconomically disadvantaged student groups maintained, foster youth increased, and our students with disabilities decreased in 2019. As we look at our English learner student groups in English language arts, we maintained with district-wide and our English learners for accountability, that's our English learners and our RFEP 1 through 4 students. Our RFEP 1 through 4 students on their own declined, and our English learner only declined significantly. We believe that our successes in reclassification last year and the business rules that RFEP students are only counted for 4 years are related to the drops for our English learner only and RFEP student groups. Outlined in our next steps will be a close study of the shifts in English learner status and how it may have affected our CASP scores for our English learner students. You'll see the same pattern of drop in mathematics for our, again, for our RFEP students and for our English learner only students.
Your microphone, if you can, Dr. Flores.
Just a clarification. So the combined data, you combine the EL and RFEP data for this, for these data, for these
So
graphs?
that's the state accountability measure, but then we pulled it apart.
Right. So
the-
this shows the state data, which shows a decline, but then when we disaggregate it, it's different, right?
So for the state, we maintained. When we disaggregate it, we can see the drops for our RFEPs and for our ELs only.
Oh, when we also disaggregated it?
Yes,
So they both dropped?
yes, both
Oh,
EL
wow.
only and RFEP only.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to math, and this is mathematics by race and ethnicity. For 2019, we maintained district-wide our Asian student group, our Hispanic student group, and our Pacific Islander student groups. And we increased with our African American, American Indian, Filipino, white, and 2 or more racist student groups. Mathematics by program student groups. We maintained district-wide for our homeless student group, our socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and our students with disabilities, and our foster youth increased. Moving on to mathematics for our English learner student groups. We maintained for district-wide and for RFEP only, and our English learner for accountability, that's our ELs and our RFEPs 1 through 4, and we decreased with our English learner only student group. So you see that same pattern of decrease with our English learners across the board.
And can you explain again, you mentioned because of the reclassification of the students and the students that were being pulled out of the reclassification title within 4 or more years, is that what you were saying?
Yes, so we believe that there's a correlation between our high reclass rates and students moving from the English learner only group into other groups, and then the English learner only group having the kids that were higher achieving that became reclassified move. And so we will do some further studies so that we can show what that movement looked like and verify that that's indeed what those drops came from.
Yeah, because it's a big, yes.
It would be interesting to see the level of their LPAC, you know, where they're at, you know, who, instead of mushing them all together, you know, to average it out, you know, even disaggregate that data even more so that, because it's developmental, I mean, in terms of them learning English. So if the majority, the low scores are, you know, with the lower LPAC, then we would know, because you just need a few low
Pull it down.
scores to bring the average down. So I would like to see how many of those have impacted the average. And if you take those away, what would the average, quote, average be?
Absolutely.
Right,
We can do that.
yeah, thank
Thank you,
you.
Dr. Flores. So board, next steps. If you take a look at your next steps, we're doing something a little bit different this year. We've made a commitment as a district, cabinet down, to get better at data literacy and being more deliberate about our analysis and interpretation and action around our data. And so what the next steps that you see reflected here are as a result of a deep data analysis that was conducted within educational services. Those findings were presented to cabinet, and what we've done in cabinet is created one day in our quarterly strategic meeting just to review data, and it will come from the department or division specific data sets. And so each quarter when we go away, we have a day dedicated just to data analysis. So for the preparation for this board presentation on CAST, It primarily was with educational services. And the next steps that you see here are the action steps that are reflected from that data analysis. So number one, what you see here is provide administrative English language arts and English language development and mathematics modules to teach the routines and strategies taught in teacher professional development. What that means is that we are providing a ton of PD for our teachers. What we realize is that we need to provide that PD for our site leaders so that they're able to supervise and give feedback to teachers on the PD that they're learning so that it's supported. Number two, develop and implement tools to measure classroom implementation of district English language arts and mathematics scope and sequence and PD. What that simply means is that measuring the impact of our PD on classroom instruction and developing tools to better track the transference from teaching of teachers to actually having teachers doing it in the classroom. Number three, continue to target teacher professional development. As you know, our theory of action is that we believe in building the skill and knowledge of teachers, building the capacity of teachers to improve instruction, and so we will continue to do that. We've also made a commitment in our district to get better, as I said earlier, around data literacy. What helps us with data literacy is being more consistent around administering our benchmarks and also analyzing those data. And so you'll see, as we go forward with the KPI presentations for the board, you'll see formative indicators included in the analysis, interpretation, and action planning for our schools. So you won't just see CAS data, you'll see benchmark data as well. Number five, Barbara spoke to this earlier around conducting a further study of English learner CAS results and their relationship and their correlation to reclassification data. Our preliminary analysis leads us to believe that that was an impact. We have among the state's highest reclassification rate in this district, and we believe that has impacted our test scores. But we also know that just as an ongoing initiative, improving the learning outcomes for our EL students remains a priority, and I think we need to study where we can move that dial a little bit better than what you're seeing today. And then number six is employee improvement science strategies to study outperforming teachers specific to overall African American English language arts learners. So what that means is that we have phenomenal teachers and school leaders in our district that are creating amazing outcomes for our most at-risk groups, which are African American students and our EL students. And so our plan is to conduct a deep analysis of our teachers who are doing it, who are working at their best here and really understanding those practices, replicating those practices, and scaling those practices. And so that's our next steps. And so we want to bring in, as we always do, we like to bring one of our principals to speak to some of the work that they've done to lead some amazing improvements and outcomes for our students. So we're going to bring Dr. Raimundo from principal at Pacific High School. She's going to walk us through some of the data that she was able to achieve with her team this year, as well as give some background about her leadership behaviors and practices that fostered those groups. So, Dr. Raimundo.
Thank you and good evening. We were very proud of our increases this year. We know we have a lot of work still to do, but we stopped and celebrated along the way because we did have some great gains. Looking at our gains in mathematics, we had a 14.7 point gain. Believe it or not, our math department chair cried because it wasn't enough. So that speaks to the dedication and passion of our teachers that they want the best outcomes for our students. And our ELA growth was 19.1. On the next slide, you'll see our gap analysis. And there's a strange little V in there with our African American student population where students decreased quite a bit in 2018. And so as we looked at these data, we were, why is this? What happened? One of the key things to remember is these are different groups of students. We only tested 11th grade. So the group tested in 2017 and 2018 were completely different groups of students. But we also had a big change in our staff where one of our longtime staff members who was well loved left the district at about midway through the first semester. And so anybody who's ever been a new teacher knows that being a new teacher is hard enough, but taking on a class mid-year is even more difficult. And it really speaks to the importance of relationships. And so we did a little bit of an analysis to see what could we do to help students to build relationships in the classroom with each other as well as with the teacher, but also look at why should our students care about taking the CASP? And we realized they didn't know what the benefits were for them. And so we did a lot of work last year in making sure students knew why the CASP was important to them, including knowing that they can opt out of some diagnostic testing in post-secondary, and that these results can help them avoid taking remedial classes once they enter college. So we made sure that parents and students were informed of that last year. Additionally, we made some staffing changes in terms of who was teaching those courses. And if you want to look at the math really quick, we also had a similar kind of V pattern with our African American subgroup in mathematics, but not quite as drastic. And so again, we believe that had to do more with relationships and making sure students know what was important about taking that assessment. A couple of things that we did last year as well, our department chairs each took a couple sections of our English 3 and our Math 3 for our juniors. And in doing that, it really helped them lead the department conversation and collaboration with all teachers, not just the 11th grade teachers. And so we anticipate continuing to have better results because our 9th and 10th grade teachers were part of that conversation, and also utilizing the interim block assessments provided through the state CASP preparation materials, which has also led to conversations around assessment in general and creating assessments, our teacher-made assessments, that more closely mimic the types of rigor that students see on the CASP. And so we believe that that's going to help students be more prepared. Last year was the first year that we implemented the interim block assessments with fidelity multiple times throughout the year. And our teachers were very pleased and very excited to come run and tell me that not only did the kids take those assessments seriously, they came to class early the next day because they wanted to know how they did. And so you could see that by not doing this test prep right before the test and really spiraling review and having students engaged with and caring about what they scored and wanting to do better, that all year long made it so that when they took the test, it was less of a one-time event, less stress for them. And just as a side note, you can't quantify the point value of this, but our performance pathway students, as part of our digital design and communications pathway or academy, created an escape room for our students. And the escape room was test prep. So in order to escape, they had to answer CASP released questions. And we included our 9th and 10th graders in that as well, so that they experienced that. The kids had a great time, and it was a fun way to prep right before they left for spring break. Our next steps are continuing that work where we're spiraling review throughout the year, continuing to collaborate and vertically articulate from 9th, 10th to 11th to make sure that our students are getting an increased level of rigor every year and not just in their 11th grade year. But also, we are doing a couple of pilots this year. We are piloting a double block for a junior level honors class. Normally there isn't a junior level honor class in English because it's an AP course, but we had a chunk of students that did not elect to take AP this year, even though they had taken honors in previous years. So we decided to give them another chance, so to speak, to be able to take AP their senior year by offering a double blocked honors juniors course so that they can get better prepared in their writing. And so that's a pilot we're doing this year. Also, we have a double block math class for our juniors who are in integrated math 3. That course, again, it's actually not a remedial CASP preparation course. It's a course that we selected our students that were kind of middle of the road to push them up with the hopes that they would take an AP class their senior year and hopefully do better on the CASP. And then also we are piloting, and it's actually, you know, I like data, so we randomly assigned mixed ability groups to a piloted double block 9th grade English class as well. And so half of our freshmen are in a double block, half are not. We have the same teachers teaching it, so we can isolate the teacher variability in that to see if that's actually effective. And if it is, then we can put some additional funds towards getting another teacher so that we could do it for all of our 9th grade students. But we didn't want to spend a whole lot of money on something we're not sure is going to work, so we're doing a pilot. Additionally, our teachers are focusing on teacher clarity, so making sure that not only the teachers know exactly what the standard is and how they're going to assess the students, but that the students know that. And so we're using the work of John Hattie and assessment capable learners. And our teachers that piloted that last year found that our students were more motivated to do well because they were very clear on what they needed to do to be able to succeed. Additionally, we are heavily focusing on socio-emotional learning, relationship building, increasing monitoring of our students through mentoring and frequent progress monitoring, and a focus on restorative practices and other means of corrections to keep our students in school rather than being suspended where appropriate, so that we can keep them in school and in classes. And then we do have a very large contingent of student participation in community service and student voice. And so we're really pushing our kids to understand that the reason they're in school is to be able to be informed citizens, and that if they want their voice heard, they need to do it in an appropriate way, and to know that they have the right language and vocabulary to be able to do that. And all of those things, I think, combined are going to help us continue to get improved results overall, not just on CAS, but graduation, A through G, all the way across. Thank you.
We do have questions, and if I can have the questions, since Ms. Raimundo's here, Dr. Raimundo's here, so then I know, Mr. Danny Tillman, you had a question for Ms. Yes, for Ms. Raimundo, and I know Mr. Gallo had questions regarding some of the datas in the prior pages. Okay, so go ahead.
So, do you know what the numbers are on like page 21? It would really help if I knew how many students made up that number for 2017, 2018, 2019.
It's approximately 60 students.
And all 3 years was 60 students?
Do you know that?
We can get you the exact numbers, Mr. Tillman.
I mean, to me, that just makes a huge difference. I mean, right now, I don't know whether you're talking about 2 kids in 1 year or 60 the other year, or, I mean, that's going to make a big
Right.
difference.
We're
though.
approximately 12 to 15% African American year after year, which is approximately 60. Maybe in 2017 it was 70 students, but
And
around that number.
Even for the one with the other student, it just puts everything in perspective. Thank you.
All right, and Mr. Gallo?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I'm just got a couple of questions on the numbers and the charts. Like page 17, it showcases, this happens to be the mathematics English learner student groups, and it showcases that in EL only, you know, we went down like 14.3% and 2.4% for the reclassified. And then when you get the total, it actually goes up by a point. I'm not sure it passes the sanity check and why it would be a positive change in the summation of those two, and a negative change in the individuals, both a negative change.
It's positive compared to
We
2017.
can answer that.
Yeah, compared to 2017 or whatever, and 18, I don't know, it just doesn't pass the sanity check for me. But page 17, you know, it's,
We'll get back
maybe
to you
it's
on
just
that.
reading the charts.
We're happy to get back to you on that,
Yeah,
Mr. Gallo.
that'd be great.
Thank you.
And then Mr. Rogers, if we're going to go ahead down this way.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you so much for pointing out what is working as well, because those are the best practices I'm hoping that we are mirroring and wanting to spread throughout the district. But Dr. Mitchell or Barbara, this may be for either of you, but also when we look at the dips, when they take place, in those times when it was, it was low, whether it was 60 students or however many, is there another correlation as to how those students are going to do by the time they're in the 11th grade, because that's when they're taking this test? So do we ever look and see what is taking place, which is again one of the reasons why I'm always saying the tracking of when it occurs, when things start to go downhill. We can always look at it after the fact. So we know at the 11th grade, it didn't do so well for that particular cohort. But are we looking at when and what is going on with that cohort, and when did it start and what did we do? Because when I talk about the D and F reports or whatever we're looking at, a progress report is just not working for me. That's after the fact. And even when they get the progress report, what exactly are we saying to parents, to students, to everyone in order to fix this, including the teachers, that we need to give additional support to kind of change things around? While I get and understand that people go away in their careers, but that's one or two people. It is the entire practice that the whole boat shouldn't go down, for, unfortunately, for these students. So I drill in and say, I don't want to say, I'm so sorry your person went away. We got to have a backup there to make sure that gap doesn't happen. So again, my question is, when did we identify? Because I don't think all of the students would have just went awry with the disconnect that takes place just in that instance. And I thank you for that, Dr. Raimondo. But those are some of the things that we look at. But when do we identify and when do we go to work with all of the best practices? And I'm appreciative to the professional development that we're looking at, but we got to be able to make those immediate shifts, because these kids don't get a second chance to go back, take the test again, and try to correct it. It's our job to correct it.
So thank you, Ms. Rogers. There's a lot in there. So one, yes, we are analyzing for patterns. As you know, we've seen drops at 4th, 5th grade math, 8th grade math. That's where we're seeing the most significant drops. Two, sometimes the student groups are so small that the scale scores are very reactive, and so 2 or 3 kids can really make a huge change, particularly with 60 kids. Thirdly, to Dr. Raimundo's point, that we also see kids, the value that 11th graders are putting into taking standardized tests, and you hear that typically our older kids aren't seeing the value in taking these standardized tests. The efforts that her campus has made to improve that, and I think that's something that we can scale and continue to scale, because she saw some great gains once we took a hold of that. And so we agree that sometimes the data catches us off guard. The other thing to note around the 11th grade test is that it covers 3 years. It covers 9th, 10th, and 11th. And so that's why you see the legislative change moving to SAT, ACT, that kind of thing. But right now the test is what it is, and I think that we can do a much better job of preparing our teachers to teach and review some of those past the 9th grade standards, 10th grade standards that they've already had. And I also think that we can, to this whole escape room, reviewing some of those older standards that they haven't seen for a while. So both from the teacher part and the student part, but certainly thank you for bringing that to our attention. We can do a better job in terms of monitoring our kids. We're seeing, of course, drops in D's and F's. We're seeing improvements in instructional practice across the board, and then certainly getting better at being more data literate and making sure that we're monitoring data is one of the improvement efforts that we're taking on.
Thank you for that. And then just the last thing is you touched on just the mindset of a student and knowing the importance of taking the test. While you'll take, I know an elementary student in particular that was she's in the 5th grade, and she knows exactly when the test is coming. She's preparing the right foods to eat, and she's going through all of these things that she's learning from her school site, that the test is coming, and she's up at 6 o'clock in the morning with her notes and reviewing, and it's just amazing. But again, we don't want to drop those same practices. We know that the students eventually are going to have to take these tests, which is going to be revealed, and we're going to have to discuss it. So we can't give a gap and say, okay, now test time is coming. The same thing we're doing at the elementary level is also things that we should be doing. But thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers.
All right, Dr. Hill?
Thank you, Madam President. Dr. Mitchell and team, thank you so much for the great presentation. I just have a few questions here. You know, one, I have a big problem with the achievement gap bit, but usually in all of our comparisons, Redlands shows up. Have we taken a field trip to Redlands to see what they're doing that we aren't doing? I mean, if we are going to use them as a comparison, I would think we should be trying to get to their level. Have we managed to seek any advice? What can we do to catch up with you?
We have not as yet, but we have a plan to.
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. The other thing is, as we take a look at our students, we know our mobility rate is probably higher than most places. Maybe Rialto, Fontana might be in the same ballpark. But is it possible when we do these reports, we can take a look at the mobility in each of the districts so we can take a look at that as well?
Absolutely, be happy to do that.
And the third thing that might create another problem, not a problem, but a concern as far as time is concerned is, what about the students who stay in place? The students who, I think you mentioned the testing, 4th, 5th?
Yeah, so I talked about seeing the first gaps, particularly in math performance at the 4th, 5th grade level.
Okay. Is there some way we can do a breakout of how many students have remained in the same elementary school and how many have moved around?
I see.
And just to do a comparison of those who stay in place?
So you're interested in seeing if that students stay at the same school, do they do better as compared to kids who move around?
Yes.
Okay, be
yes.
happy to do that.
Because it may be worth the effort
Absolutely.
of us maybe paying for less textbooks and more buses to
Yes.
keep those kids in the schools they're in.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Happy
good.
to do that. Thank you.
Thank you for the report.
Yes.
All right, and Dr. Flores?
Thank you very much for the report. Thank you, Dr. Raimundo. Looks like you're moving in the right direction. And I was just curious, I have one question for you, and then I have a few for Dr. Mitchell and Ms. Richardson. Comparably, where do you think Pacific ranks in comparison to the rest of our high schools?
I know we are at the lower end in terms of straight performance.
Mm-hmm.
We did make more gains than most of the other high schools except Middle College.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at our core data, have the board seen core data? Core data we have access to shows our school in comparison to other schools that are similar demographics-wise. I was looking at it just today, in fact, and we rank about average. And
With
so-
other schools?
Yes. but
What
not-
about within our district?
Within our district, we're towards the bottom end,
Mhm.
but we're small and mighty, and we're fighting our way up.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. I thank you, Dr. Mitchell and Ms. Richardson. I'm on page 5, PowerPoint 5. I keep pondering, what we should do, for math. And so I was thinking, and I wonder if our teachers were to do item analysis on the test scores, then that way we could see where our kids, need to grow. And I don't know if we have ever done that. Have we done that?
Yes, we do, but I think it certainly could take another revisit.
Mm-hmm. Well, we do maybe district-wide, but
Right.
I'm thinking about,
Teachers.
teachers.
Absolutely.
And saying, okay, so this is the area, maybe problem solving and mathematics.
Right.
That may be one of the weak links that our kids are not doing well in. I don't know what categories in
You're
mathematics.
talking about claims, and so.
Pardon me?
Claims and targets.
Right,
In mathematics,
right.
and so.
Like what
An analysis of where kids, in terms
exactly,
of claims and targets,
exactly.
are doing not doing well.
And so that would inform our teachers instead of just a raw score,
Absolutely.
an average score. And I think that would behoove us to, maybe pilot it or see what if that would be helpful.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
And then, I look at mathematics, 46% of our schools increased in their status. But if you look at 100%, 54% didn't. So that disturbs me. That's a cause for alarm, because the majority did not. And I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just curious, what do we need to do? What are I'm raising it rhetorically.
Got it.
I'm not asking you to respond to me. But we really have to zero in and begin to, see where our strengths are, but also where our weaknesses are, and begin to move in that direction. On this particular page, there's another question I have. When we say, or you say, of those 32 schools, 11 schools significantly increased in their status. Is this a statistically significant statement, or is this just,
It's defined by the state. If you look at the state defines significantly.
No, I'm asking you, is it statistically significant, or is it just that they moved over into another color?
It's statistically significant.
It is?
Yes, it is significant, yes. And the state also has defined, it's not just colors. They've defined, if you take a look at your 5x5.
I did.
They're clear on what
Okay.
the state has defined as significant, increase, maintain, decline, and so on and so forth.
So it is based on statistically
Yes.
significant? Okay.
Yes.
All right, just wondered.
Yes.
And then on page 6, in our first statement, our African American students group maintained their status with a 2.2 scale score, point change in 2019. We anticipate that their accountability color will be yellow.
Yes.
It would be nice to graphically also represent the sentence when we make it, so that we could see it instead of waiting all the. I know, but we didn't get to see that till later.
Yeah, I'm saying we can do that
Right,
by our
right,
subgroups as well.
right.
So it's a good
Because
point.
our parents really need to see
Yeah.
what that statement means.
Absolutely.
And my other observation is, in this group, there's nothing about, what about the Latino student? We have African American, we have foster youth, we have English learners, we have students with disabilities, but we don't have anything on our Latino students who comprise 76% of our population. That's just an observation. Also,
Thank you.
it goes to slide 7. There's nothing also in here about our Latino students. And so I would like us to, in the future, include that.
Absolutely.
And like I said, with our English language learners, it just occurred to me that perhaps if we look at the low scores, let's look at the type of English language learner they are. They might be newcomers, because if you're giving a newcomer an English exam, of course they're going to fail it. So if we were to feather them out and then do the averaging, I think that we would get a clearer picture of the actual, average. I also don't believe in averages. I believe in disaggregating the data because learning English is developmental.
Absolutely.
So,
Some
okay,
great
thank you very much.
suggestions. Thank you, Dr. Flores.
Pardon me?
Thank you, Dr. Flores.
Okay, thank you.
And then, Dr. White, before you continue, I know Mr. Tillman had a quick comment.
Yeah, I really think that there's a big mistake on page 5. Where was it page 5? Where was the page where we just talked about? Yeah, on page 6, where it says English language, English EL students plus REP students maintain their status with 0 because they didn't maintain their status with 0. They went down by a lot. If you go to page 17, and if you compare, unless I'm wrong on these years, the oranges for 2017 or 2016, 2017. What is the orange and what is the gray?
17, 18.
17, 18, right? And then the gray is 18, 19, right?
Yes.
So if you look at the
And we're looking at
comparison,
math, and what you were looking, the previous slide is English.
is
Slide 17 is math. Slide 6 is English.
17 is math.
So,
So,
slide 14 is what you're looking at.
So
Slide
17
6 and slide 14 match.
So I guess my question is there somewhere in here where it says that for EL students in mathematics, they went down by a total of 17 points?
No, you're talking slide.
17.
No.
My only concern is on slide 17, that where it says 2018, 2019 changes +1. That's not what the concern should be. The concern should be, unless I'm missing something on the slide, that the change from 1 year to the most recent, the students performed worse.
So we've said that because we have such a high reclassification rate, we believe that that's related to the CAS performance for EL students only. That's what we've said. So and it takes further study, Danny. So we acknowledge that drop.
Okay.
So we hear you, we understand, we acknowledge the drop. But our preliminary analysis, we believe that our reclassification rate. So you're pulling your highest EL kids out and putting them in another group, which drops the performance.
Well, I want to hear that. I mean,
Yeah.
my only point is, you're better off showing the number as the negative,
Yeah.
and then explain to me why. Because
Absolutely.
I should be concerned that I have that big number, that negative number.
Absolutely.
And then once you explain to me
Yeah.
why, then we look into it. If that makes sense, then
Thank
I'm
you.
all for it. But that's what I make sure it's not that I'm not
Yeah.
focusing on something that might be an issue.
Absolutely.
So you said you've noticed the number.
Yep.
You think you know what accounts for the major change,
Right.
and you feel comfortable with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I still say that number should show the change should be negative and not a +1.
Got it.
Thank
All
you.
right. And then, I noticed your light, but if we can let Dr. Wyatt with his comments.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you everyone for the very detailed presentation, and Dr. Raimundo, a great job to you and your team at Pacific High School. Most of my colleagues have brought up a lot of my concerns on here, and so I'll just try to keep it very brief. And definitely getting used to our new digital forms here. I'm trying to stay away from the hard copies. And, I heard Redlands mentioned earlier, and obviously they're a district that's performing pretty well. But, I also know that there's a lot of different demographics there too. And we always say, well, this isn't San Bernardino when we talk about, working with our community and our kids, and that's fine. But, when we look at comparative districts, and you guys present on slide 10, which, I'm really proud of, and that is us performing better than our counterparts in Rialto, Moreno Valley, Fontana. And so, I applaud you all for doing that, because, obviously we meet with our colleagues all the time, and we talk about this. And so I'm real proud of that performance. And it is hard to grasp when you have a negative number as improvement.
Yeah.
That really is hard. So you see, we had a negative 14.3, and that's doing better.
Yeah.
For those of you out in the community that are watching, and for those of us that don't study the dashboard and the wonderful 5x5 here, you're going, how can a negative 14.3 be great? Well, if you were negative 83.6 before and you're negative 14.3, well, that's a heck of an increase in a positive direction. So obviously for us, we just got to get on the plus side.
Absolutely.
Right? Obviously
Absolutely.
0 plus.
Absolutely.
So we all look a heck of a lot better. But so great job in regards to our comparative districts. It's kind of interesting. I was looking at Riverside, and for some odd reason, they're doing a little bit better than us in math. So it'd be interesting to see what they're doing over there in math. And on a state level, I'd like us to compare ourselves on a state level too. And again, that's probably a lot of different demographics out there. But we have some work to do, but obviously we're moving in the right direction. You know, I noticed on our ELA 5x5, no one in the red. That's I think
big.
quite an improvement since the last time we looked at this. We had quite a few schools in the red. So nice that we're out of there, and hopefully we can do that with math next year around. So I know that's probably a big target for us. And,
Yes.
and then obviously, you know, we did have the data, and we didn't talk a lot about our Latino Hispanic students, but, you know, I went and looked myself. So page 12 ELA, they had a negative 0.2 for them. So I don't know if that's growth or not over the last year. So that's, I think, what we're looking for. And then a plus 1.7, again, is obviously that's on the plus side. So is that growth as well? So I think, you know, in regards to what Dr. Flores was asking, you know, can we articulate that maybe next time in our report? That'd be really nice to see, because they're a lot lower numbers than some of our other subgroups, but we want to know if that's growth for them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So what slide is it?
Slides 12 and 15.
12 and 15 show our Hispanic students.
Okay, so is that improvement then?
Yes.
And is it significant?
No, not significant, but an improvement. There's a maintain on one where they went down 0.2 scale score points.
See, I didn't know if that, you
In
know, again, with the
English.
negative numbers, I couldn't tell, is that going down or not?
That was
so.
going, yeah, so we went the
Okay.
wrong direction, I see that.
All right, so that was an ELA, right?
And in math, we went up by how much? 1.7, which is maintained. So anything plus or three plus or minus is maintained.
Okay, and that's pretty good, because, you know, when we talk about mathematics as our schools, that's where it seems like we're having some major challenges too. So I wouldn't say it's terrible, but at the same time, we need to improve. And as Dr. Flores said, that is a large percentage of our students. So
Absolutely.
hopefully we could do some emphasis there and keep them moving in the right direction. So
Rogers, hold
thank you again.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Dr.
thank
Warren.
you. Before Mr. Tillman goes, Ms. Rogers, you were
And
waiting.
just, I had circled this and meant to mention it earlier, looking at our English language, arts, and mathematics.
What
how-
slide are you looking at?
This is our twister, our
Oh,
twister
you got
board.
it, Got it. Got it.
The first page is just so obvious that there's nothing in the red, and that feels so good to see that,
Right.
which means everything is shifted in a different direction.
Absolutely.
But then, ironically, you know, when you turn the page and you look at math, not
Yes.
only are there individuals in math, but it's a lot of our high schools.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, so just for us, obvious, you know, those are glaring to us, and
Yes.
the hopes is that it's even equally glaring to you, because
Absolutely.
our high schools to be here is really, you know, and I know, Dr. Raimondo, you said, you know, you're at the bottom, but you're not alone,
Yeah.
you know, so,
Absolutely.
I mean, there's
Yeah,
some
absolutely.
different colors over here. So hopefully we can put our right hand on blue and our left foot on blue
Yeah.
and move forward, and
Yeah,
then keep
absolutely.
spinning and stay in the blue.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers.
Okay, Mr. Gallo? Mr. Tillman?
Yes. I just want to bring to your attention, there's a group that created the Silicon Valley Regional Data Trust. Have you heard of that?
No.
It's called the Silicon Valley Regional Data Trust, and they actually created a dashboard using information from their school districts in that area and the county's public health, behavioral health, juvenile justice system, probation, and they use that information together to help better serve the students. They have a model that they built, and they'd be willing to use it in other districts. And I just think it'd be a great idea for us to contact the lady who's the lead. Her name is Marcy, and I have her phone number. But I was in a conference in Milwaukee last week, and she presented. But just to see how, if, for instance, if you had a student who goes between districts, but comes into your district, and it's, say, for instance, because they also have data from Children and Family Services,
Right.
so your foster youth. They said that you actually have students in foster school, foster youth, who have to take their immunization shots over and over again because the data is not allowed to be shared.
Right.
But you can share the data. It's just something we have decided not to do. And so the feds were there, and they were encouraging
Data sharing.
districts and counties, right, to share data
Absolutely.
so that those type of things don't happen.
Yeah.
And so there's a model that exists already in California. So again, it's called the Silicon Valley Regional Data Trust, and it's built, and they'd be willing to, they said they can accommodate all the districts in the state. Right now, they only have 300,000 students, which are the students in that area.
Got it.
But I would definitely suggest we look into it, because in the end, when we review this data, our only goal is to find ways to make more students successful.
Absolutely.
And the pieces that are missing are the real life stuff.
Right.
And in that
And
conference,
the
when you-
impacts, yeah.
the impact, when you talk about poverty and homelessness and those type of things, you really can benefit students when you see the whole picture
Yes.
based on that data. So I hope we look into doing
Absolutely, we will be happy to look into that.
that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the presentation. This was very informative, and I just want to mention that during the agenda review, I did also ask regarding the Latino portion, and that's when it was mentioned through the CAS, but they don't look at that specific subgroup. Is that, am I correct?
No, the Hispanic is in here, and I just slipped my mind when Dr. Flores was
No,
talking
Latino
about it.
portion, but it's the same thing, no, Latino and this Hispanic. Okay,
Yeah.
so it is.
Yeah, so the state calls them Hispanic.
Okay.
But they're on your charts. What slide was that? Yeah, let me give you the slide number so you can all look again.
And
So they're
also
on
just
slide 12. That represents English, and then for math, they're on slide 15. You have all your racial subgroups there, as well as 2 or more races.
okay, I see.
Madam President,
Yes,
I just wanted it to be highlighted on that list.
on that list.
I mean,
okay.
it's embedded, but it needs to be highlighted since it's 76% of our demographic.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay,
Be
great.
happy to do that.
Dr. Morrison, you had a couple.
You know, I just
comments.
wanted to compliment Dr. Raimundo. When I had the chance to visit her school for her WASC accreditation, it was clear she was forming and has formed a high-functioning team, and so it's her school's team's double-digit growth, which is what we're looking for. And we compliment that as a reflection of her leadership. So thank you, Dr. Raimundo. Thank you to our principals that are here that have really seen some marked change because of your leadership. It's sincerely appreciated. So congratulations. Good job.
Okay. And with that, we're going to go ahead and move to 8.1, which is report by Seminole Teachers Association. I know I spoke with Ms. Alcala and wasn't going to be here. 8.2, report by California School Employees Association.
No report.
8.3, report by Communication Workers of America.
No report.
8.4, report by San Bernardino School Police Officers Association.
No report.
8.5, comments by board members. And I'll go ahead and start with Dr. Wyatt and move along this way.
Thank you, Madam President. And normally I try to keep it brief, but I got a lot to talk about today. So just a number of great events that's been going on that we've been participating in as a district, as well as many of our board members here. We had the Family Engagement Summit this Saturday at Cal State San Bernardino and had some great presentations. Just want to thank and compliment Dr. Keenan Mitchell on some of the work that he was doing there with the families and kids as well on African American student engagement, and definitely taught me quite a bit when I was in this class, so thank you, Dr. Mitchell. And then we had our Foster Youth Summit as well over at University of Redlands and had a number of our students from the district participating there, which was nice to see, and just a lot of great work that County Schools is doing with our districts and foster youth. I know probably quite a few of my colleagues are going to talk about the town hall meeting we had last night, so I'll try to not steal a lot of their thunder as well in regards to the healing meeting and just some of the things that came out. And again, I know my colleagues are going to talk about it, so I'll try to touch on maybe some things that they won't talk about. And obviously, we heard you loud and clearly, community, in regards to bullying, and bullying being a main concern in our community. And it wasn't just any one particular community group; it was actually the majority of the community. And as our board president, Abigail Medina, talked about as well, and myself, our experiences as parents. And so we definitely hear you out there, and we feel what you're feeling as well. And it's not a pleasant feeling for us as parents, and definitely not for our students. And I'll let them talk more about that. But one resource we do have, and I was going over our website, and I'll be honest with you, I don't go over it that much. And so I went on there, and actually on our board website, if you click down on there, there is making all campuses a safe zone. And I know the chief talked a little bit about this when he was there. And we have a number of resources on that page. And if you have access to that, we have the WeTip, as he talked about, which is 211, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, See Something, Say Something hotline, which again is through our school police department, and then online crime reporting, which is our San Bernardino PD. So a lot of resources there. You just click on that and it'll take you right to it. So I wanted to make sure our community knew about that as well. And just wanted to thank the folks that participated, Mr. Sandoval, principal over the Royal Valley, our chief that was there as well. And I know the chief talked a lot about our citation policy and the positive work we're doing there. But also, he talked about a bunch of these resources that I'm mentioning. Also wanted to just ask the chief, because this came up in a kind of a sidebar a little bit in the meeting, and we had a lot of conversation about our SPED programs as too, and our special ed students, and the training, and maybe you could elaborate to folks out in the community that we've had with our own officers in regards to working with students with disabilities. So I know that's a concern out there. Maybe we could do a little presentation on that sometime and say what we do with our officers so they understand when they go into the schools and they're working with students with disabilities that it is definitely a unique and specialized approach at working with our kids. So Tip-A-Cop, as I think Dr. Hill mentioned a little bit earlier, a great event again where our school police was there with our cadets, and quite a few cadets there in uniform and working out. And I think one of the most important things a lot of people didn't realize is that the fundraiser was for the Special Ed Olympics, which was great. That was really great. And also, a lot of our folks there were there from the Special Ed Olympics, Inland Empire, and talked a lot about Run for the Torch. For those of you that are familiar with Run for the Torch, I think Dr. Volker might have actually been a part of that, and some of our officers too, so pretty cool. Secretary of Labor was here just the other day, I think it was yesterday. Dr. Flores and myself and Board President Medina were there, and Norton Element, and Mr. Gallo actually, who came in his NASA jumpsuit. That we should have got a picture of that, maybe we do somewhere so we could show everybody. Norton Elementary, some of the things they're doing there, and I didn't get to go to the second half of the tour, so I wish I really could have, but just time sometimes during the day. And what I saw at Norton Elementary was absolutely amazing, what our students are doing. They're utilizing programs that I've never even heard of. And when you see our elementary students utilizing them and doing them, it's amazing. Corel Draw, AutoCAD Lab, Adobe Illustrator, Suite Photoshop, leading into when they go into middle school, secondary school, SolidWorks, Mastercam, earning NIM certifications, which are national level certifications. And these are our kids that are coming out of our programs. So when we talk about college and career readiness, it doesn't get any better than that. And again, when you have the Secretary of Labor here saying that we're going to be a model program to state, that's pretty impressive. So I think that was it for me. I tried to make it quick and within my 5 minutes, and I have 10, 9. Okay, sorry. Thank you, Madam President.
Okay, Dr. Flores.
Yes, I just want to piggyback on what Dr. Wyatt said. It was just phenomenal to go board. If you haven't had a chance, I really encourage us all to go. We saw the sixth graders, the second graders, sixth graders, and now I see why the passion of the parents for us to continue with 7th and 8th grade and even 9th grade. Because there was 66 sixth graders. So it would only be 2 classrooms, 2 extra teachers to add, and there's room in that school. And then the next year, another 2 teachers. And I think to continue that program would be fabulous because the kids would not have 3 years until they got to 10th grade at a high school. And so I was really, I was impressed with the kids. Not only what you said, Dr. White, about the technology, but the thinking. They were developing, concepts for fighting climate change, for pollution, for water, it was just amazing. And these are 6th graders. And this one little kid, remember Scott, what was his name? There is a solution to pollution. There's always a solution to pollution. This is a 12-year-old. And so I was totally impressed.
Yeah, Dr. Flores, and I think because we just recently had a student coin their
the reading
slogan for
the reading.
And
reading is like dreaming.
Yeah.
Like what? Yeah, like dreaming with your eyes open. So just the creativity of our kids. Anyway, I was impressed by being at Norton. Danny, you would have loved it. Oh my God.
I've been there several times.
You've been there several times? Okay. Well, anyway, and then we went on to Royal. Oh my God, you would really be proud. I was a proud mama because the kids just knocked it out of the ballpark. the secretary, Secretary Sue, Labor Secretary Sue, saw the kids independently doing broadcasting. And they she saw the video that Arroyo had presented, and they pointed out that it was the kids that constructed it. She offered the kids and their teacher to do a statewide video for her. And like I said earlier, I said, so what's the next step? She says, how are we going to partner, and how are we going to get you resources? Okay, let's go, right? And so that's fabulous, don't you think? Mike, I think you know that she meant it, and we have to follow up with her in terms of that. So anyway, that was number one. So I was totally jazzed. Then I want to report on the Latino Task Force. Unfortunately, there weren't very many people there, so I got a little bit upset. And too bad Dr. Morrison isn't here, but I'll tell him personally. Dr. Greer, I see you in the audience. You're new, and I really respect you and honor you. I think that we need Ms. Applegate to head that up until you get to know more people, because she, just like Dr. Mitchell led it for the African Americans, we need a Latino to lead it so that the parents can identify with them. I think we need to reach out to more district principals. I think there was one or two there. When we did the African American task force, there was tons of principals and personnel. I want this to be successful. And I think, speaking to President Medina's concern that we have more English-only Latino parents, we need to reach out to more English-only Latino parents, and also kids. So those are my recommendations to my board members, and Dr. Morrison isn't here, but I'll tell him later. Oh, I'm going to repeat it. So that's number 2. Number 3, I already said about the RFEPs. By themselves, when we disaggregate the data, they outperform everybody in the category from the data that you showed us, Dr. Mitchell, on the Latino Task Force. And I asked the question, why are they outperforming everybody in ELA? And so we have to find out why. And Mrs. Applegate said that as soon as the kids dip, they target them and they start doing enrichment with the kids. And so that they don't falter, they just keep growing. So I think we need to replicate that as a practice in terms of that. I would like an update on Combo Classes Committee as well. And I'd like to thank Ms. Christakos and her staff for all the requests I had for the data for the balances, that were left over. How do we say that? Ending balances for all our programs. I greatly appreciate that. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Dr. Hill?
Thank you, Madam President. Just a few items. The San Bernardino Riverside Fall Joint meeting will be Monday, October the 28th, and it'll be in San Bernardino at Doubletree. So I hope all of our board members, especially those serving as directors and delegates, will show up. The keynote speaker is Tom Armelino, and I think was a former board member, school board member. But again, that's October the 28th. And you can contact Karen. The fee is low, it's like $50 for a dinner program. My second item, again, I just want to congratulate Pacific High School. When I was on campus today, I got word from the counselor that she had registered every senior who was in attendance today for the Promise Initiative. And I think tomorrow they're going to start working on the financial aid package. October the 10th, there will be a conversation about equity in our classrooms. Dr. Jose Lalas, who is a professor at University of Redlands and a board member in Corona, is hosting that. It will be at the Riverside County Office of Education, and they have invited us to join them for that event. Just a reminder that tomorrow, Mrs. Ontiveros has been patiently working with the district on the second annual California Clean Air Day, and hopefully all students and staff members will sign a pledge that we are going to protect our environment. And my last item, as I looked at the consent calendar today, I become a little concerned when I see some of the recommendations we have on there for approval. I get really concerned at, you know, there are some people who do not appreciate us as much as I would hope they would, but I also find we're sending them to conferences after, you know, many times they come by and not have a lot of good things to say about us. I hope we're doing that with good intention. It doesn't mean we need to eliminate anybody, and if our parents, you know, have a need to come out and chastise us, we you know, we have heavy shoulders, we can handle that. But just make sure we are making these approvals for the right reason. So as far as cabinet's concerned, I just want to share with you, as I looked at some other things that we are approving, I hope we're approving them for the right reason, not because someone's twisting someone's arm or you don't want to hurt somebody's feeling. Just please, I like to feel good that you're doing it for the right reason. So I, as a board member, and I think I speak on behalf of all 7 board members, say to you, if it's not for the right reason, let us know, and then just don't do it. But I just want to trust you to do what's right, and that we're using taxpayers' money for the reason we say we're going to use it for. So thank you for the work you do.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hill. Ms. Rogers?
So that Dr. Hill almost segued into, just want to, again, Dr. White has brought up, we did go and attend the community healing event in support of the community, wanting to have a conversation surrounding whatever it is that is ailing them and wherever we can chime in and be assistance. But we know, Abigail and I had this conversation, that when we are on our campuses, you know, there is a tendency to lean toward at those moments to begin to talk to us about our school sites, which we are willing to do that. But what came out of a healthy effort conversation was the bullying, and it just resonated, and you know, we're saying it again tonight. We probably would have said it 1,000 times last night. We have not just started the bullying conversation here in this district, in no way. Even so much so, as I made a note to make sure that I was going to bring it up, and we just want to, again, make sure that it's on the radar of everyone. And their request was just as well, and even though it wasn't as long of a conversation about the ownership, is everyone, including parents, including students, including teachers, everyone. And when I say that everyone, it is to be able to provide solutions. And I had spoke with a group earlier last week, and it came up in this particular group. And what I was able to point to, and we were a little off kilt last night, but we were able to point to the undercover bullying as something that we are championing here. And when I bring that up, I bring it up just as well as I did with PBIS when I first got on the board, to finally get the district to say, I know we have it, but is it everywhere? Because if it's good, then we need to spread it as much as we can. And so if the undercover bullying, which is one thing that I've seen that I can point to that involves the very individuals, just as we do with youth court, to make those decisions. And I like it. I think it's great. But it can't just be great at 1 or 2 schools. It has to be great. And so when we begin to have a conversation about funding and how do we make things go abroad, These are the things that we need assistance with, because the parents are wanting to know, what do I do? What are the steps? We still have parents that, I told a parent the week before, if you're telling me today and your child was bullied even an hour ago, it's too late. You know, I want to know immediately, because we want to make sure that we resolve, and it's not coming from a punitive, because many of the parents said even the bully needs support. So, but we've already said that. But even tonight, as we were playing adjustment with our equipment, my laptop or tablet went awry, and it went to the website, like you said, Dr. Wyatt, and I saw suicide prevention and bullying and all these things. So I applaud and again encourage our parents to redirect where those that can back to our website, because those numbers are important. Those names of the individuals that is attached to is important. The second thing that I've just been probably talking about for since this past summer, after really sitting in a class and then every morning when I wake up it's on the television. I don't know what we're doing around vaping, but we need to be saying something while they deal with the legislation on it. I don't know what we can or can't do, but it is an issue. And it's not like a person sitting in your classroom smoking a cigarette. Of course, we can tell you to put that out, but there's so many disguised ways, and this is a horrible, horrible addiction that we need to see what kind of education, what are we doing around it, because it is becoming an epidemic. And then lastly, I was talking to a community member, and I'm sure the district probably is aware of this, I hope, but they shared with me that the teen music workshop van was stolen off of the Sturgis property. And so I don't know what's been done to support that, and if support, hopefully we're assisting them. That was an unfortunate situation. Apparently some gates were open, but you know, we need to look into that.
They're having our full support right now.
Okay, good.
We're
And
cutting through all the red tape to help them get going.
And I'm glad to hear that, because they did bring it up to me, and I just thought how terrible, unfortunate. You know, we could do the Monday morning quarterback, but moving forward, we gotta help them get back on track. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Mr. Gallo?
Yes, thank you. And it was really great to see the Secretary of Labor come down here, but I want to tell you who else was here. We had the Workforce Board Chair of the Workforce Board, Angela Farouk. We also had Tim Rainey, who's the Executive Director of the Workforce Board. We also had Gary McBride, who has been at almost everything we've asked him to come to, who is the CEO of the county, as you know. Been a tremendous supporter of all of our activities, along with Reg Javier, who's Director of Economic Development and Workforce, and I think the Deputy CEO of the county as well. And so we've really pulled together this community and are garnering the attention of people at the state level that actually want to come help and fund and support. And it's because of the collaborations that we've all built here, the board, our cabinet, Dr. Marsden. I mean, this is what a well-functioning team does, is they focus on the successes, and they focus on actually being a champion and ambassador for those successes, so that you can draw additional resources to this community, which desperately needs it, as you know, and bring things to scale. So this is what we're doing here, and it's all of us together. You know, we might have divergent opinions and battle it out, but I got to tell you, it's all for the purpose of seeing students progress, and that's why we do this. And we're implementing some really starting to get nationally recognized for the innovative solutions that we're implementing in this district. Career pathways, all of the kinds of things that we're doing, which involve and get additional students engaged and create commitment and motivation and inspiring our students and direct engagement. So I really want to applaud our efforts, and I think make sure that we keep that focus of how we build strong programs of excellence, and then we show our investment in those, by board commitment and funding commitments, and then we use that dollar investment to leverage other resources from outside. That's how we're going to build these programs to scale, rather than just creating, as Dr. Marston says, these random acts of excellence. Those are good and all, but if we don't bring them to scale, then we don't do ourselves justice, and really our kids, giving them the benefit of seeing these programs available for everybody. And in my discussions with Julie Sue, the Secretary Sue, I've spoken with her over many months, and she's also got a real passion towards our special education populations, seeing how we can gainfully employ those populations in post-secondary opportunities as well as into the workforce, and the types of things that we're doing about having our special ed students lead things like at Growing Hope. I know I keep bringing that up and everything, but it's unique in that special education students don't typically have that opportunity to be leading our regular ed students in some of the academic instructional practices and things like this. So I really applaud this board for really moving us forward in those directions, and it's starting to garner great attention. Now, I might bring up, I probably got a minute or two, but I wanted to bring up the funding for our carryover, dollars that we've have remaining here. We had like $7 million. We allocated, I think, some recommendations that the cabinet made for 5 point something on it or something, and we got like $1.8 million left to allocate. I have a proposal for, that I've submitted for consideration by this board. We probably should agendize it at some point, but we got, $1.8 million that we need to allocate, or we should allocate to board priorities, for these carryover dollars. And, I have a proposal again that I've submitted for consideration of $150K. And how should we proceed on that, I guess, is the question. Do we need to agendize this, have input from our various board members for considerations on this, and or just kind of let it ride, and when we think of something, do it. But I think we ought to allocate that before somebody else does, and we should just move forward with implementing some of these programs, because it takes a while to get money flowing and things, and so I'd say the sooner the better. So I'd like to propose that we agendize it, I guess, for next board meeting for consideration, and we think of where else we may want to spend some of those dollars. You guys
Mr. Gallo,
think so?
Madam President?
Yes, go ahead.
I think it's a great idea. I would support it, and I would second it that we propose that we agendize it. And I think it would be great, because then that way each of us can decide and dedicate. I mean, there's many needs throughout the district, but we can decide a project that we want to dedicate $250,000 to. And I think it's a very worthy. And I did it in my head. There's a little bit left over, but 250 is in the ballpark for each board member to dedicate to a project that will come to fruition.
Yeah,
or
and
it's
I think-
already in progress.
And I
that we
think
want to-
having some criterion, like, it probably ought to be consistent with what we've said as priorities, and
Right.
use it, maybe our prior investments, if we could leverage those into bringing things to scale. And so it's those kinds of things.
Or maybe distribute
that-
it
that we
whatever
wanna-
way
that's
in
what I'm
terms of
thinking.
what we've done.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking.
right.
But have some criterion
Right.
for how we do it, yeah. Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you,
Thanks.
thank you. Mr. Tillman?
So, along the lines of what Mr. Gallo's asking, for Ms. Christakis, on this Schedule 1 and Schedule 2, the definition of remaining balance and unspent balance, does that mean that the money that wasn't spent in these resource line items is gonna be returned to these same fund numbers? And I guess the other question is, was this same amount of money budgeted for the new fiscal year?
So the remaining balances in the restricted schedule go to those restricted programs.
Okay.
Though that's all been accounted for except the about 1.8 million.
So all the money in the, I guess I should be clear. So where it says LCAP,
Yes.
so all the money that was listed in remaining balances in LCAP, the money went where?
So we had in the presentation the total ending fund balance, how much is set aside for our required reserve, how much was set aside for deficit spending over the next couple of years. There was a little bit allocated for TSSP, and then the 7 million was brought as unappropriated, and we made recommendations, as Mr. Gallo said, of about 5.6 million or so, and there's 1 point. Yeah.
So just so I'm clear, so for instance, under, let's say career pathways,
So you're on 910? What
Schedule
number?
1,
Okay, let me just pull it.
and it says resources 00445. And it says career pathways linked learning.
Oh, you're on the BC, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Let me get to the BC, please.
And it says that the revised budget was $812,000. As of June 30, $664,000 was spent. And it says remaining balance of $147,000.
Danny, are you on the LCAP?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I'm looking for the BC. I'm looking for a copy of the BC.
Madam President,
You can see mine.
my question also is with Mr. Tillman's.
So my question is, just focus on the ones, for instance, for the career pathways. So are you telling me that that money left over,
Did not go back to these programs, no.
it did
No,
not go to?
and they get their new year allocation
get their-
unless it was one-time funding. So there were a couple items that were one-time only, and so that just went into the ending
A
balance.
couple items, right.
But your LCAP that the board has put together and the annual allocation will continue each year.
And then, same thing for the restricted programs, activities?
Restricted programs,
On
the
Schedule
money
2?
goes back to that restricted program.
The money goes back to that restricted program.
So there was like Prop 39 energy investment, so that has to be spent a specific way. So all the restricted, all the RDA, that goes specifically back to construction.
So like
You had mentioned earlier restricted
and the
lottery,
same thing
that
here.
stays there.
For instance, like Career Technology Education Incentive Grant, the money left over there stays there?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
The Career Technology Education and Incentive Grant?
Yeah, what's the resource? And those are restricted, so it stays there.
And I guess my concern is, some of the areas that are in here, I know there are people working in the district who say they don't have funding for things, and
Mike,
I give you a good example. Is you have one in the LCAP one, for LCAP Sports,
you okay?
and he had $164,000. Right? So I mean, is somebody explaining to these people that they didn't spend $164,000 last year? Because I'm getting a robo text saying donate to the football team for whatever, and they sending me the text 1,000 times. And my thought is, do they know they have money that they didn't spend?
Yeah.
Because someone needs to have a discussion.
And so that's over several schools, so it could be nothing at one school might have
Right.
left some money.
So my fear is, I'm hoping that for the number, and some of the numbers are substantial, where you have like 38% of the money not spent. Is someone talking to the people and saying to somebody that you have additional money, that you have the same money this year, you didn't spend it the last year, but you know you have people that have the need. Because
Yeah.
I really think that there's a disconnect between what happens in the budget and what the actual people who want to spend the money get told and are allowed to do. And I hope that we have somebody from your office looking at this and going to talk to people and tell them you have a lot of money you have not spent. And it'd be even better if you look at the trend. If they do it every year, year after year after year, and you know there's people out there who want it, and I know we have the need for to buy things for the students, then the money should be spent. There's no way we should have this kind of money that goes unspent year after year after year.
I agree.
All right, thank you,
And we
Mr.
do work
Tillman.
with the school sites and with the evaluators on those numbers.
All right, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Tillman.
Thank you.
So I also want to say that I was also part of the community healing, and as the same thing echoed with regarding bullying, but then I did have a conversation with a person who works in the human resources department, and she suggested, and this is something that I would like to find out, and I did speak with Dr. Marsden regarding this, is that tackling each report, each case, and actually have some type of filing, something that is either through paper or is it through online, so that way we're keeping track and we make them feel like there's a process, so that they're not just guessing, well, we haven't heard in a week what's going on. And so the moment and she kind of put this as an example of harassment with an employee in the HR department. Then what do? You file a report, you make sure that they're being met with, and then we're tackling this head on. And so I think that's what we need to try to do. If we don't have a process regarding bullying, we should create a process. And that way parents and students are able to understand what, what it looks like as well, because when they're not hearing anything from the schools or the principal or the counselors, they feel like they've been left behind and nobody's dealing with the issue. So we have to tackle that on and look at this as a serious incident. Of course, it'll be depending on the severity of it, but we should make sure that they feel like someone is tackling this. On regards with at the same meeting, I also met with neurodiverse. I met with teacher Amy Bauman, and she was explaining to me that there's this training that we offer for our teachers in neurodiversity and inclusion certificate via University of Laverne. And the thing is, she was telling me that they actually work with students with trauma and how to effectively, not just for themselves, but to work with the kids. And what she ended up finding out is that at the end, those techniques also helped out with them on how they could be mindful and how they can help themselves. Because at the same time, teachers are not exempt from having their own personal traumas and then having to deal with that. So I think from what she was saying praises on this program. I don't know how many teachers we're sending, but if this is a way to go, I definitely would like to look at increasing this for more teachers to attend and doing this across the board.
Yeah, we're in the process of a lot of our leaders are being trained along with teachers on neurodiversity with Dr. Elliott. So I don't know if
Yes,
Dr.
'cause
Meners wants to mention that.
Yes.
I apologize. I didn't realize that's what you were talking about.
Yes.
So this year we have 38 educators that are going through, and they are our pilot,
Mhm.
our cheerleaders, if you will. It is a big time commitment. They are, when they're done, so it's a full year, starting from last summer, they will have earned a certificate in neurodiversity, wellness, and learning. And so it's weekly online meetings with University of Laverne and sometime at University of Laverne and weekends. So we wanted to make sure that for our first rollout, we went with the people that were interested and really could commit to it. And then from there, we will go deeper and offer it for more. University of Laverne is partnering with us, and they're trying to figure out how they can really meet our need. We have a very large group, but all of our administrators, we are starting with them this school year, so.
So it's administrator, so she's a
Mhm.
teacher, but the thing is that she even looked at it as a possibility for teacher wellness. We
Absolutely.
talk about students, but what about our teachers and how we're providing access for them to, like I said, work with their own traumas and so forth. But I seen a picture where you see an ideal wellness center for a teacher and what that looks like for them to rest and for them like lounging areas and just mindful, peaceful, that moment to separate from maybe an environment of stress sometimes. And so we have to look at, might be the opportunity to try to look at how we can help support our educators and our staff in that area.
Absolutely.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I had pulled this BC out, and thank you all for the BCs. I had pulled the one out, Janie, for the high school lunch lines, and it kind of pointed, in there it indicated that there was just something about a shortage with cafeteria workers, and it happens to be here, the one that I brought up before, and it's around. But is that something, I mean, we're working on it because we need people, kids need to eat, but I appreciate you giving and following up on this, but kind of where are we with that?
It is an ongoing struggle in filling some of the positions. And so what happens at the beginning of the year as they're loading their lunches, we concentrate on the elementary first. So when there's shortages or absenteeism or we don't have positions filled, we have to pull from some of the secondary to ensure that we meet the needs of the elementary. We do have speed lines. There's a lot of things we do, and then it seems to level out as we get through the first few weeks of school. And so we continue to work with the commission in trying to fill those positions, but Ms. Robles does have a significant number of
And I
vacancies.
just hope we're flexible, because with the kids getting their food, because again, I had the incident with the one little young girl that that's one of probably many that got there late for breakfast. And so sometimes we're in the adult mind, and it's like, okay, go ahead. But if we know we've identified a problem where it is hampering that, we do have to do something, because we want to make sure
That
they're
meals.
getting the meal properly, so they
It's
can
very
go
important.
and function in the classroom.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. And with that, since she just reminded me of something, I'm wondering the amount of excess food that we have at the end of the day and what that looks like and what we're doing, especially if there's ways. I know there's been several articles that's been shared, and trying to look at what are some alternatives to maybe having those families being able to pick up food that are left over, and what does that look like. And then, of course, I'm always thinking of looking at sustainability, making sure that we're not utilizing so much plastic at the same time.
So
Yes.
we could have Adrienne come up and she can respond to all of your questions. We are not allowed to send my understanding, we cannot send the food home. She has the regulations. We do collect, it's a family table or a share table, any of the items that haven't been opened, so that if students want seconds, they can get those, and it's been very successful at about 10 of our sites. So I think Ms. Robles could respond specifically.
Good evening. In regards to being able to take food home, there are restrictions as far as health and safety codes, as well as mainly USDA. We're not allowed to have students take food home. They are to eat it on the school premise. They have allowed some flexibility, so if the child doesn't finish an apple or maybe a bag of carrots, they're allowed to take that home. But the focus is that the child is to eat it on the school campus.
So the reason why I'm asking is because there was district that was actually able to do it, so I'm wondering how they were able to create that and pass it, and so they must have been able to figure out something.
Right, and when I can look into that further, but I know what the current regulations are and what we're required to do, but I can follow up and look into it some more. But I wanted to just follow up on what Mrs. Christakos was talking about, our share table program that we have. We piloted 8 at an elementary, 2 middle schools last year. We developed areas that they'd be able to put foods again that were shelf stable, so that we didn't have to worry about them be out of the wrong temperature. And we had great success. We had very little that we were having to throw out. So we're still encouraging in our offer versus serve program that students take what they're going to eat. And of course, we want them to take all components because we want them to get the nutrition. But if they don't eat all that, we would prefer that they don't take it.
We have expanded, she has expanded the supper program in partnership with the school sites, and that's been a great success as well. especially for students that are playing sports.
Yes.
And so that's gone well. So if you give me the district that you heard
Okay.
of this program,
I'll have
she'll
to
reach
I
out to them.
actually sent, because we all keep
Yes.
getting this from the community. They're
Mhm.
sending it to us,
Mhm.
and I probably every single one of us got it. So Dr. Perez got it from me. I know, again, two versions of it this week to find out, because Abigail is right. What we're conflicted with is that when they see it, that someone else is doing it. You know, we know it probably is in another state or whatever, but we just need clarity as to what we can, or is it something that we can do? Because it's, I mean, when they're sending it to us, and we gotta be
Right.
able to respond and say whatever our answer is here in California.
Right.
So this is going live, so they also know that we're
Mhm.
talking about it, because I've gotten several text messages
Mhm.
about it.
Yeah, and by
And-
the way, this is still America, so we can change the laws if we don't like it.
Yes.
And
And
don't yield our rights to doing the wrong thing.
Right.
Right. So
I
we
do
just need
my-
to, we just need to know, because I
Mhm.
mean, the hunger thing is broad, and everyone is
Right.
changing up from the waste to see what we can,
Absolutely.
because we have people that are
Absolutely.
students. I mean, well, we're fighting for the students right now that are hungry, and we know it affects them in the classroom. So this is more than just, you know, I want to just continue to eat.
Right.
They can't function, and then we know what happens over the weekend for our homeless
Mhm.
students. This is the last meal they get on Friday. So
Right.
between Friday and there's nothing set up in the week, they're waiting until they get here. But if we can do some things, we just want to know whether it's from our sites. I saw the BC on the Supper
Mhm.
program. I think that is great. But again, we talked about this, I know, year after year. There's
Mhm.
a lot of waste that goes on, and you know, whatever we can do, but they are urging us to do something.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will follow up with you, but thank you.
All right, great, thank you. Okay, other than that, let's go ahead and move to 8.6, comments by superintendent and staff members.
Thank you, Madam President. Just wanted to echo Mr. Gallo's comments earlier about having Julie Sue visit. She was very engaged as Secretary of Labor and Workforce Development Agency, and we actually are working to invite her to be a part of the conversation with Susie Levine's visit, who currently oversees State of Washington Workforce Development, and is former U.S. Ambassador to Switzerland, will be our keynote speaker at our November 13th gathering. And so we're working, really, Board would like your help to get our decision makers, lawmakers, employers, partners there. And so we'd love to have you present. This is going to be not just a local conversation this time, but a regional conversation. So excited about that. Want to mention a few student recognitions. Congratulations to San Bernardino High School senior Bertha Arias Ochoa for being crowned Miss Cardinal City for the 2019-20 school year. Bertha will represent San Bernardino High School and the city of San Bernardino at community events. Congratulations, Bertha, and have a great school year. I want to thank our community partner, the California Retired Teachers Association, for providing $250 grants to 18 of our district's educators. So thank you, Cal RTA, for your support. Recently, I visited the EdTrust West Education Equity Forum. Several of our staff and a few of our cabinet members were there. Fantastic forum, and looking forward to our continued partnership with them. We had then this last week our joint cabinets meeting with Cal State San Bernardino, San Bernardino Valley Community College, and one thing that we all landed on among a number of topics was we want to re-energize our commitment as a community to the San Bernardino Promise. So there's already some great early data around the San Bernardino Promise from Valley College, or the Promise for Valley College, and there's been some great data at Cal State. We want to now just continue to combine and keep this alive and well. And then another congratulations to once again to our board president, Abigail Rosales Medina, and Gwendolyn Dowdy Rogers for being honored as Women of Achievement Legacy of Exemplary Service Awards by Libreria del Pueblo Incorporated last Friday. Sorry I had to miss it. I'm still recovering from my loss of voice. And then board, as a reminder, we have a special board meeting scheduled Tuesday, October 22nd from 5:30 to 8:30 for the superintendent's evaluation. So it'll be at the PDC, yes, and we'll give additional details to you from Karen. Thank you so much. Those are all my comments.
All right, great. And Gwen, I consider her our Afro-Latina. So she was yes, so she's been, she's amazing. So let's go ahead and go to the consent calendar, 9.1. Certain items, and I will go ahead and read what it says here. Certain items of the business require review and approval by the Board of Education. Other items are for information and review only. Therefore, the following items are grouped as a consent list for receipt and approval. When board members have questions about an item, item or items included in the consent calendar. These items are then pulled out of the group and considered separately. So can I have a motion?
Move
first
to
of all,
approve.
okay, which items are to be pulled?
I have two,
Mm-hmm.
9.4 and 9.11.
9.11. Any others? Going once, going twice? Let's go ahead and call for the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carried. Let's go to 9.4, which is ratification of the agreement with Adam Law Investigation Council.
No.
Is that the one?
National Center for Education and the Economy.
You said 9.4? Am I in the wrong?
On my agenda, it says 9.4.
Oh, so you have a printed copy that says 9.4? So
Yes.
Okay.
I have a copy that says 9.4.
Why don't you give us your question and we can at least
Okay,
entertain
the
question.
item is agreement with National Center of
Okay.
Education and the Economy.
Okay.
And it's just a point of information, Dr. Marsden.
Before you continue, I just want to make that clarification. So we are now looking at 9.5, agreement with National Center of Education and
so it
Economy, so
wasn't
9.5.
Okay, 9.5. I'm very curious. I believe totally in, in terms of the capacity of leadership. And
Yes.
I'm just curious in terms of, it says we're going to have 25 principals or administrators. Does that include principals, or is it all principals, or is it administrators in general?
Mostly principals. I can have Dr.
Okay.
Mitchell maybe if he wants to speak to it, but in short, it's one of the most robust national programs.
Right.
For
Well, I am. I'm
20
fascinated.
24
Yeah,
days.
yeah. I'm not criticizing. I'm fascinated because I looked them up, and they say they have research. But what are going to be our indicators to monitor the success of this program based on their capacity building? I mean, what are going to be the indicators that show that they have grown?
Sure, and I'll just speak to it anecdotally, and then
Okay.
I'll have Dr. Mitchell mention. But I was present at the graduation. I've been present at a couple of their meetings, and I will say that there is a significant transformation in the leader, and you hear it as they share out after the 24 sessions,
Okay.
where they have strong instructional leadership vocabulary.
Okay.
They are emerging as instructional leaders, which of course translates to student achievement. So I'll let
Right.
Dr. Mitchell speak to that.
So just to clarify, so the focus is building their capacity and instructional
As
leadership.
instructional leaders,
Okay,
yes.
okay. That's what I wanted to
Absolutely.
know, what it was, yeah.
Sure, certainly.
Additionally, we are at campuses, the evaluating assistant superintendents. We're at MOU time. We're in classroom. We're doing classrooms, observations. We're working with principals as they design their adult learning strategies. And so the leadership aspects of instructional leadership is what we're focused on. And we're seeing a higher level of maturity with these leaders, a higher level of depth in research, a higher level of designing adult learning systems that actually improve the practice of teachers. And so these intangibles that account for so much change in our schools is what we're after.
So I would really, after this year of them implementing this, I would like us to have testimonials or a
Absolutely.
report, or, to show,
It's a great idea.
the impact, the positive impact of it. And I think I really believe in testimonials
We can do
as
that.
evidence.
Absolutely.
So I would appreciate that. So moved.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those
Aye.
opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. Let's go to 9.11, which is, and this is what it says here, Dr. Flores. Federal, state, local, district
Yes.
budgets and
Yes.
revisions carry over.
Yes,
Okay.
that's the one. And so I have a question, Dr. Marsden, for Ms. Christakos, and it's on the building fund.
Sure.
I see deficits for, and it's restricted money for building fund, 3,163,303, et cetera. Capital fund, facility fund, 49,737 and change.
Yes.
School facilities fund, 80,409 and change. special reserve capital outlay fund, 254,377 and change.
Yes.
So it's all in parentheses, so why is it a deficit? That's my question.
Sure. Ms. Christakis will speak to that.
That's a great question. I'd actually like to ask Ms. King, it might be specific resources or that some of the money was coming in, came in late. And I apologize for not having that on hand for you.
Okay, yes.
And I'm because it's restricted funds.
Good evening. When we start the year with budget development, my department, based upon budget and projected expenditures, will put in a beginning balance for a particular program. In particular, with facilities types fund, if an invoice is processed in June rather than in July, it can affect what the actual ending balances is, because we're doing a projected beginning balance. Beginning and ending balances will be the same. So when we're projecting, I projected a higher ending balance, but some actual costs within the fund came through, they materialized. So what we're seeing here is the adjustment to decrease the beginning balance that I put in because it was too high. We actually had the cost come through in 18-19.
So is it a deficit or is it not?
So the fund itself is not in a deficit. It is just that these funds now, this is just adjusting it to a lower level, but it is not a deficit.
So why is it indicated as a deficit?
It's a reduction of the balance that was put in at the beginning of the year. So these are the adjustments to the beginning balances that we estimated.
So we want the facility, we don't want to stop the building program. And so there's money in there for them to continue all the work over the summer. And she's just adjusting that number, just like all these other programs.
So this is just the projection?
It's an adjustment of
To
what
the
I
projection.
projected, yes,
Of
to
what
the
you
actual
project.
amount, yes.
What you actually, so it
Yes.
really isn't a deficit?
No, it is not.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know.
That's a great question.
Yeah,
Thank you
I
very
just
much.
wanted to know because I was shocked. I go, how can we have a deficit? Because we have all this money in facilities. And so what would be the true beginning balance?
We can get those for you.
Mhm.
And in the unaudited actual book, when you look at Fund 21, it gives you the total of all of the funds in, say, Fund 21. It will show you what the actual ending fund balance was.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it is there, but we can give you a separate report
I would
if
like
you
to see it,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So moved.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. King.
Second. Any discussion, any further discussion? Hearing none, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. Let's go to 10.1, Personnel Report Number 6, dated October 1st, 2019.
So moved.
Okay. Any discussion?
Who
Hearing-
moved it?
Oh, I'm sorry, as presented, forgive me.
presented.
I forgot my line.
It's okay. I was like, wait, this is something new.
Second.
Making sure you're awake.
All right, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. 10.2, adoption of new board policy 3230, federal grant funds, second reading. So I need a motion. Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. 10.3, which is board ongoing initiatives and reports.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. 10.4, board top 10.
So moved.
Okay, so we have a question, Ms. Rogers?
I have a question on 7. Just from, I came back and I know there was a discussion about the carryover. And so the 7 is this board budget wish list, which I've always looked at it and thought, why do we have that there? But I think what we just kind of talked about brings us back to, is this an opportunity to close in on that and determine what do we want to do with that discussion? Because it's going to pend, and I would like to see all things up front maybe, or ideas at one time, and then it'll help us not have to try to do it throughout the year. So maybe, you know, the board might have some ideas, because Mike has indicated something, and this is what the wish list, I guess, is. I think, Dr. Flores, you were the one
Yeah, we
that
can
kinda brought it
actually,
up.
we
So-
can do that.
So can we, so
Well,
how do
We'll
we,
we'll create this list. So let me let Ms.
because I
Christakis speak to
wanted
it.
a discussion.
So we've worked on this, on how to present this to the board and collect all of your information. And as you'll recall from the last presentation, we listened to some of the areas where you voiced concerns, and we requested carryover based on the things that we've heard from the board. And so we actually almost have this done, and it is looking at what are the outcomes, does it align with our strategic plan and LCAP, and what other resources do we already have invested in this area, and is it a matter of training, or do we actually need more money? And so we do have about 6 steps laid out. And so your idea of putting it all on one and then prioritizing is a great idea.
Because now, I don't know how soon, you go ahead, Dr. Flores.
Dr. Flores.
Well,
had a comment.
that's one option, or the other option is what Mr. Gallo proposed, in terms of each board member, allocating $250,000 to certain projects that each of us would like to support, and that's only for the 1.8 million. I mean, we as a board can decide whatever with budget. I mean, our superintendent and cabinet present a projection, and if we disagree, we can change it and propose whatever we want. And there are recommendations. So it really isn't just 1.8. It can be, if we get new monies in, or it can be beforehand. We can change it accordingly.
Right.
Yeah.
I just would like to close in on this opportunity, because it came up, is kind of here, and rather than, I'm hearing a number, and I'm assuming that the 1.8 is the new number, and in addition to whatever could come up, but we need to make a decision. Do we agendize a discussion? Do we wait for them?
I'm
Are you
wondering.
going to give them direction as to what you've already told them about? Because I'm sure some board members may have already had some discussions, or have had some things you've jotted down in order to have a list.
Could we just send you a list of several items? Is that something?
Well,
that-
we agendized it for next.
Okay, so
We've
did you-
agendized it
Okay.
for next week. I mean, for the next board meeting.
Right, I would
So that we
suggest
can have
be
a
prepared to
discussion
talk
then.
about it at the
Right,
next board
right.
meeting.
So be
But that's what I'm
prepared.
saying, is for
Right.
each
The
board
list.
members to look at their own list. Is that what that's going to happen? Because we're going to go and talk
Right.
about something that
Why
we're
not?
not.
Well, and
Sounds
again, I
reasonable.
don't know if I heard, maybe you heard something different, forgive me, and my head's a little fuzzy, but I don't believe I heard Mr. Gallo say, hey, every board member has $250,000 to spend.
Well, no, I
I think-
didn't
I
say
think-
that, but I mean, that's what it works out to
That's what it-
if you would
that's
have
what
just
it-
divided equally
Right, right.
among 7 board members.
So I just, I want to reiterate what you just said. You have a very large budget, and when you as a board say, hey, here's a priority that we see for our community, one, you saw a number of those items listed during Janie's presentation previously, and we will we'll continue to listen. What is the board's priority? So this one item that was Mr. Gallo's surface, we can agendize that. You can discuss it. There may be other items that merge. Maybe
Yes,
there's things that are
yes.
beyond the 1.8, and then
And
if
that's
there
what
is
I was trying to
something-
prevent.
Yeah.
Because if we go, nothing against you, Mike, but I'm just saying, it kind of got brought up, so why, if there's others, I think we should address those so we know together.
Mr. Tillman, you had a comment?
And that's why I requested that it be agendized for the next board meeting.
Right.
So
Yep.
that will be the opportunity and the time to discuss it.
Well, and do you all have,
Perfect.
do you want to talk about how it's listed here and what you have? Are you bringing something?
And so
Who-
the
is
one,
who
I did
bring-
want to say the
is who-
1.8 million is one time. It is carryover, it is one time. And so we also have to consider, how do we sustain, what are some things that, and cost containment, a lot of things that we've talked about. I've also heard about some other pathways that have been under consideration, so agendizing it and looking at the sustainability is important, what's working, what's not working, so there's, rich conversation to be had.
Okay,
That's
and then
what
Mr., did you still have a comment?
So nothing's really changed. We've always had the ability to have a board member suggest that they want to spend money on an item. Of course, you have to get, if you get agendized, you have to have somebody make the motion, somebody second, and vote on it. So it's never going to be where, at least I don't foresee where every board member just picks they're going to spend $250,000, and because it's your item to pick, everybody says okay. It's not going to happen, because if I pick to get some gold shoes, you're not going to support it, right? So it's not just you get to pick. It's going to be based on you have an idea. If you get it second and other people agree on it, then you decide that's how you spend a certain amount of money. But it's what we always done. If you whatever the item we have, the discussion is going to come out, and staff may say that we're already doing that, or we have money set aside to do it, or it's in the works, or we can have a whole bunch of responses. But I'm sure some of the things that we bring up will get done. I think it's a good thing only because if board puts a spotlight on something and wants to follow things to the end and make sure it gets done, sometimes that happens. My frustration is when I see all this money that goes unspent, when I'm trying to do something like at Norton, say, let's give us this video conferencing, and everybody acts like you just can't do it, and there is no money to do it. And I'm looking at this ending balance where it's hundreds of thousands of dollars left over in that specific area. I wish somebody would have said in March, hey, you know what? You wanted to do this, and we haven't spent all the money for career pathways. We can take this money and fix that, rather than so many people being adverse to getting things done, and at the end you have all this money left over. If the money was left over and within the schools community, I really got the feeling that the people were getting everything they needed, I wouldn't have a problem. But I don't see that. I mean, even in the African American, there's an line item for African American, and when I met with the African American parents, they were just asking for simple things that, a bus trip or transportation, or be able to go to a conference, or some special training for the students. And they were told the money doesn't exist. It's the same thing. I'm looking here at the ending fund balance. You have tens of thousands of dollars that weren't spent. So that brings me to my point. If we do suggest things, at least we're going to make sure that it gets done in the end and the money is spent. It's the same money that's there anyway, but this would be just one other way that we can make sure that there's a need that's met within the district.
So are we agreeing as to saying there's a discussion that's going to be just what Mike said, or are others going to give input? That's what I'm trying to clear and see if we're meeting the needs of this board, this wish list, because I don't know what it really means.
Right.
So.
I recommended that we have an agenda item to discuss the carryover of $1.83 million, I think was the number. And I happen to have a proposal that I'm putting forward for a part of that. And I would think that would be another opportunity for anyone to put forward other considerations.
Okay.
So that's what Dr. Flores basically said, yep, that's what we want to do. And so
Okay.
let's put it on the agenda, have a discussion on it, and let's see where the discussion goes in
Okay.
public.
Okay.
That's my recommendation.
Okay, sounds good.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yes, thank you. And then my last question, I noticed that 8 says complete, and I know before, things would be complete and then it moves forward. But I just want to state that on number 8, where it says explore ways to positively involve parents of struggling students, and then it says conference style, and I know we had our conference and we're looking to do that. But again, I want to be specific about when we identify, like we talked about earlier in the presentation, when we identify that we have struggling students, which also kind of alerts you when D's and F's, what do we do with those parents? It's the same conversation that they ask us, what do we do if I have someone being bullied? There has to be something that we intentionally do with the parents other than send out notifications, robocalls, that impersonal stuff. I'll just say all the impersonal stuff is not authentic parent engagement. It doesn't help me to know how to help Johnny get a C the next time. So that, I wanted to clear that up because I've been asked, what did I mean? And I see it's complete based on things that we normally do, but that is not what I was asking. When I say conference style or come together, it's when do we face to face in a positive, strength-based way with our parents to say, here's some tools to help you help your son or daughter.
Okay. So then can I have a motion? Did we have a motion? Yeah, we did. We did. Now we call for the vote. I'm sorry. So let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. 10.5.
And by the way, if we had one of those items, the one that Gwen was referencing was marked complete. So technically we have a slot open for one of the top 10s, right?
True. We do.
I mean, is it complete is the question. I mean, so I think that's what you were asking.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So 10.5, board follow-up.
So moved.
Any discussion? Hearing none, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. 10.6, future agenda item. Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. Now let's go ahead and go to 12.0, adjournment. But we do have board.
We have a summary of.
I'm
board
sorry, 11
requests,
point. Yes, I'm sorry, I passed
and
that one.
Dr. Perez will help us with that tonight.
Okay, summary of board requests.
Okay, so the follow-up for the request from this evening, I have a request for us to separate out the data, the English learner data by level for the CASP results. The second item, and 2 through 7 actually fall in line with the presentation from tonight. So the next couple of requests are related specifically to the presentation. So providing the number of students for Pacific's data slide, number 21 and 22, Mr. Tillman was asking specifically for the numbers that lined up with that, with the number of students for the data. The next item is asking us to look at the numbers on slide 17. There was some concern about our English learner and our RFEP numbers not matching up to actually give us the 1% increase that we were reflecting on that slide. And then to Ms. Rogers' point, what are our early academic warnings for potential failures, and what do we do to act preventatively? The next request was for us to look at the mobility aspect of our results and how does that come into play for our students who are more stable in their enrollment and those that may have some instability within their enrollment. And the next item is related to conducting item analysis using our claims and targets to really break down and identify areas for teacher support, further teacher support in preparation for our students and the CASP test. The next items are not related to the presentation.
You forgot to mention that I requested that we have the Latino data articulated in the narrative.
Okay.
For both math and English.
For math and English?
Yes.
Okay.
It's embedded in the graphs, but it's not articulated in the slides.
So we're looking for a data statement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think that myself and Danny, on page 17, we were just wondering how the numbers.
We arrived at the numbers?
You could have two numbers going down, and then it showed a positive in the total.
Correct.
I just need to understand that.
Okay. And then the next item was a request for us to explore the Silicon Valley Regional Data Trust and the work that that team is doing to look at our academic data and our whole student data. There was a request for a presentation for school police related to interacting with special education students specifically, and some strategies that we might be able to employ in order to help equip our school police officers interact with our special education students. We had a request for combo class update and a request for our efforts. What are the efforts to build awareness and prevention related to vaping? And the request to agendize the carryover spending. I have here in quotes the wish list. And then the last request was for us to share the process that we have for bullying. And we will add that and amend the BC that we previously submitted to include actually what that process is. We were more data oriented in just sharing the data.
Yeah, and can I don't want to call it a wish list.
Okay.
It's a list.
Okay.
It's a do list.
Yes.
Okay.
To-do list.
Okay.
I was
Yeah.
taking the
It's not a
language
wish list.
that we have from our follow-up, so I can change that.
Madam President?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, Dr. Perez, that I recommended that we disaggregate the EL data regarding newcomers so that we don't average in the scores of newcomers because they're just learning English, and of course they're going to score low, and that will disaggregate it out and then see where they are, and also by category.
Yes.
And developmental LPAC category to see where they all fall.
Okay.
So instead of mushing them together and averaging them.
Okay. So I want to make sure that I'm clear on that one. So our CASP data, our English learners, we're requesting that they be split out by their English proficiency level, and
Yes.
then newcomers separate as well.
Right.
Okay.
Right, correct.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay. Yes.
I just want to thank Karen, even though we struggled up here a bit, but I think we kind of got it together. I know she made meetings for us to attend. I don't know if all attended, but we really had a nice time figuring it out tonight. Yes, but thank you.
It was funny. At one point, we were laughing hysterically. I just couldn't stop laughing. Once I seen Mr. Gallo and Danny Tillman struggle with their
Like I said,
With
the
the
only
case.
thing I couldn't make happen was the
Making
thing,
it
when you
large.
make it larger,
Yes.
it won't scroll over.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
I
It-
chose to
it-
use my
You
archaic
You have to
book.
keep moving it.
But
know,
you can
so.
though, so you
So
can.
we got to figure that out.
This
how
worked
it
really
compresses
well
and
for me.
scrolls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay, so we're almost done. We're just a few minutes away, if not a minute. So we're going to 12.0 adjournment. Approved to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, meeting adjourned. Our next board meeting will be, I'm so used to it being on here, October 15th. Thank you, everyone. You have a good night. No.